So I've got Margo here. We were just going to have a nice little conversation together, but of course I woke up this morning. I was intending to sort of go into a semi-retirement, and I realised I can't do that. This sort of woke me back up again. So shall we just go through some of these slides, Margo, and just see, because you're more up to date with it all than I am.
Yeah, I just did a video on the high carbon dioxide reading. I did it for my Subscribe Star members last night, and we just experienced the highest carbon dioxide level in recorded human history, at least for 800,000 years. And it was this. So explain this. So today is Tuesday, May the 5th, 2020, and it's May the 6th for you, but so this is, you've got the slide here, so you want to explain that?
Yeah, so anyway, and an interesting thing was I found a website, I can't remember what it was, which gives the CO2 levels, and I found this, and it did a comparison with the same day last year. So it was 418 parts per million, and then the same date last year it was 414 parts per million.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was when I didn't do a screenshot of that. Normally I always do a screenshot. I didn't do a screenshot, and when I go back, it won't load. So there's no data. So there's no data.
I got a screenshot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one. Yeah.
So I'll go on to the next slide.
Okay.
So I just came across this this thread. This is from David Wallace Wells, and he's talking about conditions in Russia, most specifically Siberia. And of course, we haven't been hearing much of that in the media.
Right.
But there just seems to be quite a lot that's come out in the last few days. So he said, conditions throughout April and into May have been freakishly warm. In recent days, temperatures have spiked as much as 36 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 20 degrees Celsius, above normal for this time of year. And the heat is expected to hold for at least the next week.
Yeah, so, and we're not hearing much about this at all. This is the first I've heard about it when you showed all this to me today.
Just one tweet from one person,
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been showing Climate Reanalyzer, the 2-meter temperature anomaly map. So it could be they did have in the last couple of weeks, a big red area moving down through Russia, and then it moved down into Mongolia and China, and now it's into the brown, but that's still the brown is still like 10 degrees higher than normal.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
And also we know that NASA Worldview at least alters the data when they feel that they need to. So
right.
We can't always take it as gospel. That's
right. Yeah. So
anyway,
go ahead on this one.
Yeah, towns have been caught up in the fires with hundreds of structures wiped out and smoke clogging the air, making it hard to breathe. Critical situation might be an understatement.
Yeah, and it's so early in the season for this to be happening. It's awful.
Yeah, I mean, May, late April,
I know, it's only May 5th.
There have been several articles have come out, which I'll provide in the description box below. There's this one. This comes from Science Alert. We don't want to alarm anyone, but a large amount of Siberia is on fire. And here goes another article. This is from Gizmodo. Russia set a record for its hottest winter ever. And Moscow basically skipped the season entirely. Now the Siberian countryside is on fire with roughly 5 million acres of forest and grassland ablaze. The largest fire is around 1 million acres alone.
That's awful.
I mean, it's just, and we hear nothing. You know,
Yeah.
these are specialist publications.
Right.
Here goes another article. Wait a minute, is that the same? It might be
No,
referring to the
this is a
same
different
article.
one. It's a different
Oh,
one.
this is a different one.
Mm-hmm.
So we should probably talk about the huge wildfires in Siberia right now. And I've connected on Facebook with, on Twitter with this guy just this morning.
With Brian Kahn, yeah.
Yeah. And then there was this from the same guy. Moscow didn't get a winter this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just read this little bit. Moscow just had its first winter in recorded history with an average temperature above freezing, running at a blistering 6.3 degrees Celsius above average. The heat wasn't isolated either, with other parts of Eurasia all experiencing freakish warmth and low snowpack. Well, I had a winter in Moscow in the 1970s, and I would say that the average temperature, a really warm day was -10, and it went down to -20. So
wow.
That's a
Is that
pretty
Celsius?
good comparison. Celsius, yes.
Yeah.
So
well,
-10 compared with 6.3 positive.
Yeah. So we had a really warm winter here in Reno, and we had our cold weather and snow in November and December, and then it warmed up, and my heating bill was a lot lower, and I didn't have to shovel snow at all this year. I mean, I had snow on my car a couple of times, just a little bit, a couple of inches, and that was it. And and now it went from that warm winter to now it's summer. It's in the 80s today, and we had no
wow
spring. Yeah.
And I saw some temperature charts showing that. I mean, just really high temperatures in California, Nevada, the whole of the West.
And we had like I said, the bulk of our snow in November and December, and so we're running a lower snowpack this year, and we get the water from the Sierras, the snow that's in the Sierra Nevadas. That's how we get our water here. So
well, that's exactly the same with the South Island of New Zealand. We've got the Southern Alps, and I mean the snowpack is decreasing all the time, and at some stage those rivers are just going to dry up. They're all snow.
Yeah,
they come from the snow. So anyway, I'll go on. I won't read this.
That's okay.
Well, perhaps just this paragraph. The temperature anomaly this winter effectively doubles the old one, making this no doubter for the record books that stretch back 140 years, according to TASS. Both January and February were the warmest ever recorded. Snow has also been missing in action, is it? I don't know. Forcing the Russian capital to truck in a few piles for the New Year's Eve celebrations. And we hear nothing about this. Nothing at all.
Right.
So these are, this is the article which came out a couple of days ago, which I only picked up today. This just makes the hair stand up on end. Wildfires critical in Siberia and Russian Far East, up to 10 times worse than last year. People are flouting coronavirus lockdown to start fires. Well, my suspicion is whatever they say about arson and about farming practices, that this is all peat forest. And my suspicion is, I mean, Russia's so huge, there's no way that they put out the fires from last year.
No. No.
So they're just starting up again.
And those fires are really hard to put out because of the peat and the tar, and there's a lot of methane, and there's the permafrost.
You should see the pictures.
It's awful.
You should see the pictures of the people here, who are fighting the fires. They're just in khaki clothes. They've got no protection or anything. Pam pointed that one out to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there's that. And I just wanted to take this back to last year. In fact, this was at the end of July, so we're we're in early May.
Right.
fire and flood apocalypse with wildfires raging and dire threat to Baikal, the world's deepest lake, around
Yeah.
3 million hectares on fire, including the Arctic, with fumes having hit areas larger than the European Union. So now it's 10
I
times
remember
that.
that. I remember seeing all the smoke on NASA Worldview there.
Yeah.
It went on for months.
And it's over an area that we can scarcely imagine.
I know. And no one's talking about this.
Yes, and I think what they're talking about, these present fires, they're down near Baikal, which is what they're talking about here. But I mean, there were fires all over Siberia.
Yeah.
But that was catastrophic because it's just
Yeah.
one of the most magical areas of the
Yeah.
planet, you know.
It looks
Baikal.
like it was beautiful, you know. So
Yeah. I think my only regret is I got through life without seeing it.
yeah. Well, you can't see every forest, but
No, that's right.
I love the trees.
So I just wanted to show this one because these pictures say a lot. This is the Barents Sea, and you've been monitoring this far better than I have, but even when I've been in, I've just seen how either there's no ice or practically no ice.
Yeah,
and these pictures seem to confirm it.
Yeah, and just to refresh people's memory on where the Barents Sea is, that's the sea that's to the west of Novaya Zemlya, and we didn't get any ice there this winter and last winter, but especially this winter, and so.
It's really between. Am I right? It's between Svalbard and Novaya Zemlya.
Yeah, basically, and it's coming up from Norway. You come up from north from Norway, and then it's that area there. That's the Barents Sea when you're coming in from the Atlantic into the Arctic, and then it's over. Then Novaya Zemlya is on the right, and Barents Sea is right in there.
Yeah, so those are basically the things that I picked up this morning, and I mean, you know, the Siberian thing. I kind of knew about Moscow. I haven't seen anything for a while. I knew that they were having a really warm winter. But when I see this, well, it just brings it back. And really, Russia and Siberia are kind of the ground zero for all of this, aren't they?
It seems like it. And we're set up to have the hottest year on record and hottest summer on record. So
what is, just very briefly, is your assessment of what has happened to, you know, world greenhouse gases, you know, with this economic lockdown? I mean, one thing that occurs to me is, you know, we've had, you know, a major lockdown, and you know, we're getting these record levels of carbon dioxide. So what's happening elsewhere?
Well, we still have people on the planet, and we're still living, and we're still producing things, and we're still using electricity, and we're still driving cars, and it's not like everything completely stopped. The planes are still flying. There are fewer of them in the sky. And what I saw for a couple of months was massive areas of sulfur dioxide over the northern hemisphere. And I was reporting on that. And I didn't understand where it all was coming from, because it didn't look like it was coming from the earthquakes or the fracture zones or tectonic plates, you know, the plate lines. And so then I thought, well, maybe it's the sulfates falling out of the sky, and as they're falling down, they're being picked up as sulfur dioxide. And, you know, the instruments don't know if it's falling down or going up in the atmosphere. So, and now when I look at sulfur dioxide, all those big red clouds are gone. And so for about the last couple of weeks, the sulfur dioxide has dissipated, and it's back down to more normal levels, and seeing more greens and blues and, some cream colored, and we're still, now we can actually see a sulfur dioxide release, before the earthquakes and things like that. Whereas before I couldn't tell what was coming up from the ground and what was in the air. So
there was that meme, wasn't there, that there was a lot of there was a huge sort of reduction in particulates while the while the crematoria were burning in Wuhan, China.
Well, I mean, you can see there's still a lot of sulfur dioxide coming up in China because they're the biggest polluters in the world, and they had people, and they're using electricity, and they're eating, and they're they're polluting. Just because they're not going to work doesn't mean that all of that stopped. And so I think that's kind of a misconception, and we don't know because we've never been in this position before.
Yeah.
So we don't know what to expect.
That's it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And there's no way to measure it. There's no way to really measure what's happening, and when the economy starts back up, how many more cars are going to be on the street? I don't know. I just know that the cars never stopped here in Reno. I mean, people were driving around all the time, and the construction never stopped. They've been replacing all the roads and putting in fiber optic cable and
5G probably.
Oh yeah, we've had 5G for the last couple of years. We were one of the first cities to have it.
Oh really?
Mm-hmm. And I knew I could tell a difference immediately. I knew it started in the summer of 2018, and I felt it. And we were one of the test cities for it to go in for all the wireless companies. And so we were one of the first ones to get it. And I started seeing the towers go up, and I'm like, what are those? And I didn't know what they were. And then once the pictures came out, I knew that they were 5G. And there's a 5G tower at my storage unit. And so every time I go to my storage unit, I get exposed. So what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do.
But basically, as I was sort of thinking this morning, we're on our own. I mean, what can we believe? We can just monitor things as best we can, and and join the dots as best we can.
And try to keep.
Who in this crazy world can we rely on?
And we do have an inner sense of knowing the truth. We do have that as humans with souls. We are connected to the God mind. We are connected to God. We are connected to the source source of the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And with that, and we can know the truth, and we can become quiet and ask for God to show us and to give us discernment and to, help us to see the truth and to see between the lines and to see the lies. And sometimes for me, it's not about the words that I read. It's not about the person and their degrees or anything. It's about a feeling I get. A lot of times I'll be reading an article and it's like, oh, that doesn't feel right. Or I'll be hearing someone talk and I'm like, that doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't. And then I just kind of put that on the back burner. And then a few days later, that person ends up being exposed. And I'm like, well, that's what I thought. But, I can't come out and say, this person's not telling the truth because I don't think so,
Of course you can. Yeah.
We have that inner knowing and that inner instinct and, the gut feeling. And if we can, not be so pulled with our minds and with our heads and tune into that gut feeling and that knowingness, I think it helps us to get that understanding, and to know
The other,
that we don't have to believe everything we read or see. We
yeah,
don't have to
exactly.
believe it. And all we have to really focus on, one thing that's helped for me is I've really started focusing more on me and what's going on with me in my immediate environment, and what can I do to make it through this day.
Yeah,
All I
I
have
think
to
the,
do is make it through this day, and then
yeah,
tomorrow's
exactly.
the next day.
One day, 1 hour at a time. You know.
Right. And if it means
But
I stay in prayer, then I stay in prayer. Or if it means
uh,
I'm going to grow a garden, then I work on growing a garden. But every day I try and stay to a schedule, and I try and stay on task with whatever I'm doing. And that seems to be helping a lot.
yeah. And the other thing that occurs to me is that if you're a materialist and you think this is the only life you have, you might think it's precious, you might not. But that the concomitant of that is fear, because you
Right.
don't know what comes afterwards. Whereas if you've got an inner knowing, you know what comes
Yeah.
afterwards.
If you've got a spiritual connection.
There's no reason for fear.
No. And I'm ready to go. I am so ready to go, and it'll happen when it's time. But
Yeah,
I'm not trying to hold on. I'm just trying to maintain until it's time to go,
yeah,
and trying to be as prepared as possible for any situation. But I know there are going to be certain situations that I won't be able to deal with.
yes,
Like I couldn't live with no electricity for days and days and days on end. And
yes.
no, I couldn't do that. I'm not equipped
Or
to do
water
that.
coming out of the tap.
Mm-mm. I'm not equipped to do that. And very
No,
few of us would know
yeah,
how to do that.
yes,
I don't live out on a homestead and, off the grid and, you know, totally self-sufficient. And even then, you know,
yes.
what if you got sick, or what if you cut your foot and got an infection? Could you heal yourself? And, you know, it's I just think we'll be here until it's our time to go. And then
Yeah.
when it's our time to go, we'll go.
And then people talk about being self-sufficient, but I mean, the fact is that sort of takes us back a century or so. And what happens if we do get an infection? Well, we die.
We
And that
die.
was,
Yeah.
and that's what happens. So,
Right.
that's something that that the preppers don't really talk about.
And the preppers have prepped. They bought things, and when the
Yeah,
supply chain breaks down, which it's doing, how are they going to buy stuff to prep with? Because what if you
yeah,
go through all your preps and the methane bomb hasn't gone off and we're still here? What do you do?
yeah, yeah.
You know? And
Anyway, I think we've probably covered the basics there.
yeah, so I've
Uh,
enjoyed our chat
so
here.
yeah, so we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
So if you want to turn off the recorder.
Okay.